Do new relatives suddenly spring up?
I think well wishes, yes. I think it's only till that. So fundraising for most entrepreneurs have not done it before, right? Or not from the business community, right? Who are not like an IIT plus IIM, tick mark plus consulting background, and not well networked. It's extremely hard.
It was a struggle. It was a genuine struggle where ups and downs, everything was witnessed like in front of us.
When you hire a CXO, right? You don't only hire a CXO. You check a हाथी and हाथी को पालने के लिए भी बहुत सारे सिपाही चाहिए, right? A lot of fodder is to be given so that हाथी can even accelerate, right?
Celebrate the differences, because you are supposed to be different. If you're going to go across and have everyone follow one word, that's also problematic.
Yeah, one more thing is, don't do a WhatsApp message. Go meet the founder in person, have a beer with him, right? And then you will know the real story. Then take the call.
If you had a chance, Rishubh, to relive one memory, what would it be?
I know.
Go on.
Right, that's what I
was thinking the credit. But yeah, go ahead.
Welcome to the 12th episode of the Lifeboat. This time, I have another amazing and dynamic entrepreneur duo on the coach, Akash Zaveri and Rishubh Satiya, the co-founders of Plix Life. This brother-in-law duo are completely different from each other, but have the same entrepreneurial mindset and goal. And with that, they built a successful plant fix brand like Plix. With these two at Akash's beautiful house, I had a great time discussing how these brother-in-laws became co-founders and how Plix was built and with what intention. We also dwelled into Rishubh and Akash's take on hustle and Jugaad being overrated or essential in entrepreneurship, along with their takes on whether to shout out loud or keep it low about a brand. And how can we end this amazing episode without discussing the most talked about acquisition of 2023 in this space, the Plix and Marico acquisition. ऐसी बहुत सारी stories है और उनके अनोखे किस्से हैं जो आपको मिस नहीं करना चाहिए for the benefit of your entrepreneurial journey. Sit back, enjoy, look at this new episode and learn from it. Keep building, but one step at a time. कुछ देखिए, कुछ सीखिए, like कीजिए, share कीजिए और subscribe कीजिए इस channel को. And let us know what you thought of this episode and what helped you. Welcome to the Lifeboat. Let's dive in.
How's it going, guys?
It's going good, yeah? Chill, relaxed.
What about you?
Excellent, man. I think can't be better.
Flavor of the season right now? How does it feel? So a lot of the, and the idea of this podcast is going to be very, very open, very candid. बहुत मज़ेदार तरीके से बातें करेंगे, बहुत सच्चाइयों को लेके बातें करेंगे. We'll talk about a lot of stuff quite a few things which our viewers can learn from the journey that both of you have had. And I'm personally so proud about the journey. But tell me, is it overwhelming when such amazing news, so much of glamour, so much of PR, so much of limelight comes into a situation of one particular moment? And in this case, the moment is a 600 crore plus acquisition. How does it feel?
So I'll tell you, right? I think the accolades are like way too much, right? In terms of friends and families, everybody. So I'll tell you, right? Like for me, the moment the news came out, right? Everybody knew about it. We were like, we'll try to keep it hush hush, right? So that no one knows. But I think everyone comes to know, and like people from your building, your community, everybody talks about it, right?
Do new relatives suddenly spring up?
I think well wishes, yes. I think it's only till that. But yeah, right. You are suddenly seen like a rock star, right? Who's this guy? In fact, like I've just quote some funny instances of a lot of people from business backgrounds, right? Not business, family backgrounds. They're running traditional businesses. Are like, Rishubh ko to jackpot lag gaya. And I'm like, no, this is not a jackpot, right? This has been something which I think me and Akash both have worked continuously. Even the last 10 months have been extremely intensive, right? To get to where it is. It's not something which is just come like today's I won a lucky draw. It's a lot of hard work. But so that's there. Plus, I think a lot of people start respecting you where people are like, wow, man, you've done something remarkable. Like, you know, like they say that, make statements like from your community, like, community का नाम ऊपर हो गया है, हमारे खानदान में किसी ने ऐसा कुछ नहीं किया था. There are stuff like this.
Suddenly you're eligible once again to marry.
In fact, like a lot of friends and come on, Rishubh is like everyone's very upset that you're already married. Like I met this old IIT Roorkee friend, and she's like, people have seen that, you know, she's a mutual friend to me, and she's like, my female friends are asking her, "Meko introduce karwa de isse yaar."
You know, I'm sure Priyanta will be very
Priyanka will get very angry. Like,
very interesting reactions will come in as a result of that.
Also, one more instance is, you know, like you usually get invited to a lot of events now to talk about it, and even after the event, there are like so many people who want to come and meet you, right, and just want your time. Like after you walk out of an event, and you will see like there are like 40-50 people who will come to talk to you, which is like extremely overwhelming, which I think was like something which has never experienced with me before.
That's a great feeling.
Yeah.
It's a great feeling. You know, Rishubh raised a very interesting point, and Akash, I want to go a little deeper into it. See, validation, of course. It's not a joke to be where you guys are. It's not a joke in terms of the kind of news that the acquisition has brought in, the kind of news in terms of the brand of the acquirer. Everything is phenomenal. But I loved what he said about that it's also about validation for the moment. A lot of people don't go back to those years of sweat, tears, pains, tribulations, palpitations.
Right.
Hazar bhasar jo hote hain. Take us a bit through the start. How did all this begin? How did this shape into where Plix today is? And take us a bit in terms of how emotionally things have changed for you.
You know, I was just watching a podcast and the host was like, if you know how difficult entrepreneurship is, if you know exactly what's going to happen, the probability of you actually going through it is very, very slim. But that is exactly what the journey was. Early days, bootstrap businesses, one-man armies, doing everything from manufacturing to marketing. It was a struggle. It was a genuine struggle where ups and downs, everything was witnessed like in front of us. We saw it all, right? We spent 15 months raising capital, brought on venture capitalists, negotiated an SHA. So we've seen the entire gamut of what it is to build a startup in such a short period of time, that too with COVID, such a uncertain variable hovering over us. But net, I think we grinded it out. We realized what it took to really build efficiently, brought our skill sets together, really complemented each other, and got to where we are today.
So the first question, and it's a beautiful question. I'm going to touch base straight away on to say, यार इंसान बहुत बार ना सोचता है यार कि अकेले करे या किसी को साथ लेके करे. Should we do it alone? Should we do it with a co-founder? Choosing the right co-founder as it is so goddamn difficult. And here, the co-founders are two brother-in-laws. And that can create so much of complication and yet have so many other parameters to factor in, because there is a personal element that comes in as well. So take us through the journey of how you both became co-founders. More importantly, how does one choose the right co-founder? What is that DNA? What is that chemistry? What is that moment of eureka to say, हाँ यार, इसी के साथ करना है. What is that calling?
From my personal experience, right, I think the best way to find a co-founder is not to go looking out for one, but to understand where the need gap is. What is it that someone that'll come into your business, come help and solve, right? In the case of Rishubh and I, we both had ideas, we both had a vision, we were executing on by ourselves. And what really worked is that after getting into the business, right, after understanding the struggles, the challenges, even the growth, right, we really understood, we had a very good clarity in terms of what it takes to build a strong business, what it takes to build a strong foundation. And it just made sense, right? Like
go a little deeper in that. Tell our viewers, in your view, what are the ingredients that actually creates the strong fundamental of a business when you start out? And I think fundamentals are, sector agnostic, even though you are in the D2C space, but take us through your thought process of what actually creates that strong fundamental.
I think the number one thing is extreme clarity on the levers that move the business and identifying that. And when you can identify that, finding the right person that can lead those, right? In the case of Rishubh and I, we really understood that these are the 3-4 levers that run the business, that move the business, and that if we can spend significant more time than we can individually on running those levers, we can dramatically change the outcome of what we want to build and really hit the visions, really achieve the visions which we had set in mind. Specific examples are like having a really good, having a lot of time, a lot of bandwidth focusing on product, having a lot of bandwidth focusing on marketing, right? Doing it individually and realizing what your strengths and weaknesses are is very, very important. Early on, it allows you to understand who is it that can fill in your shoes, give you that ability to run even in areas where you're not as good in. And I think if you take like an anecdote from sports, right? Like you're as good as your weakest player. Take that into business, you take that into entrepreneurship, and you realize that, you know what, if there's certain areas you're not that great at, you need to buffen it up. You need to get the right co-founder on board that can handle areas of the business where you're not as good at. And I think that coming together allows you to really deliver at the topmost potential, to really take on the market, take on innovation, and drive the sort of synergy towards the vision you have.
So complementary skill sets is what Akash is talking about, but simultaneously he also said कि यार, in his mind and view, you don't really go out looking for a right co-founder. But also, the reality is that a lot of it plays out in terms of luck. Ki by luck do you get the right co-founder? So take us a bit about how did you guys meet? How did brother-in-laws decide to get into business, which can be so crazy? Tell us how that happened.
And that I think is one of the key ingredients of success, right? Is I think the relationship me and Akash have, right? And us both joining hands. I think without this, I think me and Akash will be running mega companies today, doing like maybe 40-50 lakhs a month yet. So for me, I'll tell you what happened is I think me and Akash were running 2 different brands, right? Olina and Plix. And we were building it up slowly. And I think when I used to chat with Akash, we used to realize we have very similar sets of problems. We are a one-man army. Kaise build karenge? It get very difficult hiring people. How much can you focus on? We are bootstrapped. We couldn't go and just like throw cash around.
Couldn't even experiment, yeah.
And we were honestly both from traditional family businesses, not running a business, like not having really like the corporate business background which most people have, right? So our problems are very similar. And that's when I spoke to, and to be honest, like when I told the first thought came to me is like, मैं तो struggle कर रहा हूँ. I need someone to help me. Let me check with Akash. And I told my family about it, right? And that was a big no, by the way, right? Mom was like, नहीं यार, घर में business नहीं कर सकते यार. Relations will also get spoiled. In fact,
एक तरह बेटा, एक तरह जमाई.
Yeah, she's like, नहीं, ये तो नहीं. My wife said no. In fact, even like Priyanta, right? Poonam also said no, right? And then, so in fact, for me,
Poonam's your sister.
Poonam's my sister, right?
His better half.
Yeah, and she's from the great part of the company today, who was not working. And I think she would also always be in a fix, what should I do? Who should I support? Because we are running very similar businesses, right? So it made sense in sense that we both joined hands for me. But by the way, in that conversation, our fathers agreed. Our fathers were like...
So before our fathers agreed, we agreed ourselves.
We agreed ourselves, but our fathers were like, this is a good decision also, right? 1 and 1 makes 11. So then, without taking heed of my family, I called up Akash and said, let's meet, right? And I was like, Akash, this is where we are at, and I'm also looking to raise external capital. Once I raise external capital, फिर तो ये नहीं हो पाएगा. But I feel both of us will do great together, right? We'll join hands, we'll scale up, and we'll build a business. It's no point competing. And I think me and him got along on that thesis very clearly, right? Boss, let's do it. We aligned our agenda कि क्या build करना है. And I think what also worked is we are 2 very different people. That's, I think, something which you need in a co-founder, right? You and a co-founder can't have the same set of skills. Then how are you going to be, right? That's what Akash was saying. So he was, I think, great at being, like ops and finance was his strengths, right? He was very clearly number driven, which I think I've also learned a lot. And I was very good at selling, being a marketing guy. In fact, that's what we had seen also, right? Akash had built a lot of depth in product in his company, had actually worked directly with manufacturers, while I was more focusing on sales and marketing, putting more offers in. So वो सब match हुआ, and we were like, this is great. So this is what I think worked for us. I also recommend you can't go out looking for a co-founder.
Yeah.
You need to find someone who you know, because the most important thing for us was trust.
The currency of trust.
Currency of trust. So
and I think the narrative towards this should change right now. Like, I think people are still looking at having a family-run venture-backed startup as something that's stigmatized, right? But if you see some of the best businesses out there right now that are in the limelight are couples, family-run. And I think, as Rishubh just said, right, trust factor plays a very, very big role in achieving success.
I think currency of trust is key for anything to
Yeah.
go.
So like, trust me, like so when Akash, I will tell you honestly, right, till now I think I don't even know what our bank balance is, right? Because I know, yeah, that's the amount of trust we have with each other, right? Akash will never go and double click on marketing budget because he knows I'll take the right calls, right? And that gives us two things. One is trust and independence to take the decisions we want without anyone interfering.
Yeah.
And everyone owning their own verticals.
Yeah,
I think that's
that's
a
the
very
most.
important element to
Yeah.
say that you can't,
Yeah.
while you have
right
respect
way to
for each
phrase
other,
it.
you don't overlap or overstep each other's verticals.
Yeah.
You're comfortable in your skin to
Correct.
say that I own my P&L, you own your P&L.
Yeah, that's very important because otherwise what will happen is if me and Akash both do marketing, right?
You're second guessing each
Yes,
other.
we'll start second guessing each other, right? I'll try to prove him right, and if we realize that this doesn't work, right? So if things Akash is spearheading on, I think he will spearhead. I will take a step back, and if things I'm spearheading on, Akash will take a step back. I think we've realized that also a lot, right? We'll not try to get in each other's way, and that's where you will excel.
But I think that's also a sense of maturity. A very, very, very rarely do people understand that this stems from the factor that you have to be so secure about yourself and so mature that insecurity doesn't come into play. I see a lot of co-founders getting into conflicts more so because of maybe that little bit of insecurity, little bit of ego mismanagement to say that you don't know who's coming in the face versus who's not. Like, small example, if you're leading sales and marketing, chances are that you'll actually be out there as the face far more than someone who's leading the numbers, who's looking after maybe the back-end manufacturing. But the maturity to say that everything together is the company, that's both of you and of course your shareholders, I think that maturity comes with age. But I want to go a little granular, right? Again, the purpose of this beautiful podcast and this beautiful conversation is for people to keep learning. Now, you said a beautiful and a very easy thing to say, you guys decided to come together. What does that mean? Does that mean that you guys merged your business? Did you do a business transfer? Did you create a
Right.
new company? Because a lot of people who are trying, or maybe in the situation that they met a potential looking like a soulmate kind of a person doing some other business,
Right.
but they don't know what coming together means. So what did you guys do?
So I'll dissect it, right? Rishubh was running a proprietorship. I was running a one-person company. Merging the two is next to impossible. We created a private limited company. And what we did is we took both of our balance sheets and we sold it to the private limited company. Private limited companies, which is a company in which Rishubh and I had an equal shareholding in. And that's where we started transferring the business. By transferring the business, what we did was we started changing all of our back-end sales, payment gateways and collection agencies to the private limited. And gradually what happened was all of the assets, all of the receivables started transferring to the private limited. Private limited is then what we started doing business in. It was the face of the company. It's the entity in which we raised capital eventually. And that's what allowed us to create a very clean, organized structure in the quickest possible time.
See, I already see the beauty is I've seen you guys over the last year, and the roles are also so beautifully dissected. So when it comes to a technical bit, he's explained it so beautifully. I want you to answer another question. What and how did the name of Plix come into? Why Plix? What was the? I'll tell you why I asked this. See, a lot of people underestimate, Rishubh, the power of simplicity, especially when it comes to branding. A lot of times, branding is supposed to be unique and yet simple. It may or may not have meanings. The reason I ask this is that, again, a lot of our viewers might be in the decision-making zone to say that they want to start something where they don't know how to go about thinking of a brand name. What does a brand name's uniqueness come and help in the business long term? How does it go into defining marketing, brand building, and other aspects? Is it that you have to spend too much time in trying to get some kind of a logical conclusion? Or is it something which can just be very unique? Like when Nike got formed, right? It didn't have any meaning. But yet, Nike is something which was so unique that it got embedded into everyone's minds. So take us a bit through the name of Plix.
So I'll tell you two things, right? For me, I think you shouldn't spend too much time on a name, right? There are just 2-3 basic fundamentals, right? Keep the name unique, right? Very simple. Shouldn't have too many competitors. Like when someone searches Plix, only Plix should pop up, right? It shouldn't be like you have a name which is very generic, like table. Because when people search on Google table, then there are going to be like 100 things.
Yeah.
So just keep that, right? And the depth of the meaning, right, of the brand will come in through your marketing and branding, which you communicate to people, which people solely absorb, right? Nike, like when he said was formed, right? I don't think people embedded just do it, right? It was pushed across.
Yeah.
So that's what thesis is. And for us, I think Plix, my focus was to keep a very simple name, 4-letter word, which is easily recognizable. People can search it easily. It's unique. And it came from, and also the most important thing is I wanted to keep it generic. So the thesis was to launch things in plant-based. I didn't want to limit myself to launching only proteins or only nutrition, right? And since the name is so generic with Plix, the plant-based being the ethos of the company, I could launch even personal care today, right? Otherwise, if I launched say a company which was a brand name which was very focused on nutrition, saying eat easy or whatever, then I would never be able to launch personal care. So it helps me expand as the business grows. That's and I think the Plix name came from the word the plant fix, which is also there in our logo. So PL from plant and fix IX. That's how Plix has come in. So that's how we thought about launching Plix as the word.
So it's a key takeaway here is a lot of people don't understand what the power of future to say that when you have a generic term, you can actually widespread your SKUs and products.
Yeah,
correct.
I think that's a brilliant plug-in which people should take away from there, that if you had it so specific to a sector or so specific to a product-oriented aspect, it's impossible to create that wider scope of SKUs.
Right? Then your name becomes restrictive, very restrictive to what you can build further on, right? True. And what happens is, honestly, I think entrepreneurs, right, when you're first starting off, you don't even think that my company itna bada ho jayega ki meko like nutrition zyada karna padega, right? Honestly, you're like, okay, but
you're driving in one lane and hoping that you reach the destination there itself.
Founders get very passionate about the idea they're building, and then you don't realize until you actually get into it that your idea can pivot. And if your idea pivots, you sort of need the brand to support the pivot.
So keep that thought in your mind, because I'm going to ask you exactly on this when we come much later in terms of the acquisition journey and the founder emotion. But before that, I'm going to go much more deeper into something which I think also needs recognition. You guys used a lot of aspects of emotion around the term entrepreneurship. I personally believe that entrepreneurship is also a calling. I've said this in several past episodes as well, that Suleimani Kira hai to sone nahi dega, nahi hai to jagne nahi dega. But more importantly, it's a calling. And that calling comes from within. So take us a little step back to your lives, maybe that 10 years earlier, both of you, where you were more young, not that you're not young now, but how does that stem and how does it come into the mind to say that kuch alag karna hai? The fact that the calling is coming out to say that you want to be an entrepreneur. The fact that you want to create and build something of your own. Why? Reason I ask this, guys, is this also means that there is a conundrum, right? There is a dilemma in a lot of people's minds, especially a lot of our viewers who will be facing that conundrum, to say there is an aspect of safety net in the term of a job, the regular salary that comes in, the fact that leaves food on the table, versus this so-called calling which says, yeah, I want to build something of my own, create something of my own, but it's a big black hole. You don't know how it's going to shape up. How does one take that plunge? How does one understand and calibrate the mindset to say, yeah, enough, I want to do my own stuff? Take us through an entrepreneur and a founder's mindset. What creates a founder?
I think it's a very individual question. I think Rishubh and I would have very, very different answers to it.
I'd love to hear that.
I think, so fortunately I grew up in a background where I didn't really have to worry about putting food on the table. And I knew early on, and I think I'm very privileged to know early on, that in order to build wealth, there are very, very few avenues you can take to build. And entrepreneurship is by far probably one of the fastest and easiest ways. Not easiest, but one of the fastest and most effective ways to build wealth. And
higher probability.
Exactly. Statistics are in favor.
I would say higher probability.
Yeah, I mean, I looked at it in that lens, and I'm like, early on I saw that, you know what, people that make wealth typically are entrepreneurs, and if I want to make it earlier on in life, you probably have to start something which is valuable, which can become valuable. And I had an experience working at an investment bank in California, and I saw a lot of these founders selling stakes in their businesses, and I'm like, these guys are really young, they've built something in a couple of years. And seems like very interesting. I never thought that coming from a family business, your business is an asset that's tradable. And that opened my eyes. I'm like, hey, this world of acquisitions, of mergers, this is something which is never talked about in my family, but I got an experience to really see how this works out for founders. And I got very, very interested in it. And I saw that, hey, you know what? If I want to build wealth really early on in my life, this is probably one avenue which, as you said, has the highest probability of achieving it. And
I'm glad you're being honest, because a lot of people are not actually that honest, because the differentiator in mind in terms of wealth creation versus survival only comes in when you actually come from a background where you don't have to bother about survival. And you're one of those rare people who are being very honest and not outlining and portraying a story of how you struggle with torn and tattered clothes. But the fact that you had a privileged background which allows you at a very early stage in mind to understand the difference between survival money versus wealth generation. And I guess that's where the maturity comes in, to say that you looked at it from that perspective. Go a little deeper for us to know, what was background like? Where were you born? Where were you brought up? What was
Right.
college like? Where did you go across and do your education?
Right.
And how does that align mindset? How does that align mindset to say that, yes, this is where you realize entrepreneurship is the right path to go
Right.
forward?
Yeah, so just very, very briefly, right? Grew up in Japan, born in Bombay. Grew up in a city called Kobe, which is a slightly smaller city in the country.
Famous for its sizzlers and meat.
Unfortunately, haven't touched any of it.
I like it, he corrected himself.
No, anyways. Studied in Boston, went to a very entrepreneurial driven school, and
Which
studied
was?
Northeastern, studied finance over there, and had a lot of experiences early on working with founders, right? First experience, I was in New York working with alumni, building a jewelry startup in the e-commerce space. Second was at an investment bank, and
Which one?
Arbor Advisors. It's a boutique tech M&A firm. And I got exposed to two sides of it, right? One is the founder side, the other is the
The client side and the service provider.
exactly. And I was able to form sort of a thesis about what I want to do very early on, in terms of not the idea, but in terms of the concept of how I want to build my career. And I think I took a very big leap of faith, and I think I really identified the right market. Like, I think in 2015, when I was really exploring what I should do next, and I said, hey, you know what, I want to move to India and start something. A lot of people were confused. Like, you have a Western upbringing, you grew up in developed countries, and here you are, you want to move to India where there's a lot of red tape. Apparently, the business is the industries are very fragmented, infrastructure isn't there. But I was very clear in my mind that this is sort of the environment where there's going to be a lot of opportunity. There's going to be an opportunity for disruption, and you're operating in one of the biggest cities in the country, right? Where there's economic power, there's access to smart individuals, which growing up in a city like Kobe in Japan is, you really don't have that sort of, it's not a Tokyo of the country, right? You don't have that sort of exposure and opportunity. So I'm like, hey, you know what? Let me give this a shot. I see that there's something I can build here. I don't know exactly what, but that's kind of how I approached it, and that's how I got here.
And yours would be completely diametrically opposite.
Yeah, mine was very different, right? To be honest, my thesis was also to not be an entrepreneur. I was like, when I was finishing my education, I was like, yeah, let me do an IIT course, work for a couple of years.
Go a little more granular. Where were you born up? Where were you brought up? What was education like?
Okay, so let me talk from there, right? So I did my education from VIT, engineering. Then I finished my graduation, post-grad from IIT Roorkee. And I come from a family, very traditional business family. My dad runs his own small set of family businesses, which is very OPEX-driven printing company. And
But Bombay-based?
Bombay-based, yeah. And he's happy with his life, right? And he's honestly not grown over the last 20 years. And it's a very stagnated kind of business which I've seen, right? Which I realized very clearly, I don't want to get a business which is stagnating, right? So I was like, let me do a job, right? Let me do the traditional part, right? IIT karna hai. Then I was like, I'll work a couple of years in consulting. Then maybe I'll do like another MBA from like your Ivy League colleges. And I was like, I want to become a CEO of some fancy company, is what I wanted to build, honestly. And that was what I thought about. And I was very fascinated by the lifestyle these guys would live and everything. And I was actually aiming to do that, right?
A very chartered path.
A very chartered path is what I wanted to take, to be honest, right? And after I finished, so that was the thought process I had, right? And after I finished my education, I think my 2 years at IIT were great, right? I got exposed to a lot of people. I realized how companies are built, talking to entrepreneurs, even me going out and building a lot of value in IIT in terms of placements. I was head of the placement committee, got good exposure to the corporate world, and it was great. I got fascinated. I worked 2 years in consulting. And I think one of my biggest inspirations to even start an entrepreneurship came from Akash, right? So Poonam would always talk about how Akash is doing well. And I was like, wow, right? You know, like, like, you know, you don't need to be like, what do you call it? What I thought is you don't need to be someone like you don't need to big pharma company to build something, right? You can actually start up as a founder and build something, right? You don't need to be like something a superstar, all right, to really smash it out of the park, right? And you will do well, right? I think, to be honest, that was it, right? Because a lot of people think that entrepreneurship and what we built today with me and Akash also is like you are like a superhuman. But trust me, yeah, we were very average people. In fact, like during engineering, I had like 6 KTs, right? In my 8th semester. So 4th semester, right? So I gave 6 papers and I gave 6 additional ones. Otherwise, so not great smart people, or like you don't need to be that. That's what I realized when I even heard from Poonam or Akash that you don't need to be a superstar, right?
School of life is very different from real school.
Yeah, and that's where I also realized, you know, maybe I can also give this a try, right? And that was the thesis for me. Out of what do you call normal individual can do it. It's not that difficult, right? And I said, let me take a shot at it. That was mine. And what will happen? And I keep saying it, right? I did the math. I was like, I have to do 1 order a day, and at least I will have food on the table. And 1 order a day, 2,500 rupee AOV, 50% margin, 30-40,000 to we'll make. I will figure it out with 30-40K. Stay with my parents. I don't need to make more than that. And I'm like, chal jayega. That's how I prepared myself, right? And obviously,
Basic survival.
Yeah, basic survival ho jayega. So that was my thesis. And obviously, I think we've come a long way from that. From 1 order a day, it's hopefully 1 order every 5 minutes.
No, not 5 minutes, every 20 seconds.
20 seconds, right? See, that's what it is,
crazy,
right?
yeah?
So my key takeaway, right, from all of this is you don't need to be a superhuman to start a company, right? Or you don't need to have massive backing or something. I think, I'll be honest, right? When I started Plix, I took a loan from friends and family, like barely, very less capital, right? Started very frugally. And it works. And that's how, and you can build a mammoth like what me and Akash have built today. So don't think us as superhumans. We are normal people. In fact, I have to fail that, like 6 papers I failed. So not smart in studies. But I was committed, extremely hardworking, did the grind, did everything. All of us did, right? In fact, like so much so I would pester my customer, their WhatsApp number got blocked. It's yet blocked. But so that's all right. And then you will be able to build something which is amazing. You know, entrepreneurship or starting a company is what do you call?
Cut. My takeaway, this is your camera.
Right? But I think is the credit, which is the happy.
No, I'm loving this. I'm loving this because, you know, there's so much of truth in this conversation because, again, I keep smiling even though we have about a generation in terms of age gap between us. But I'm not playing the ages card, guys. But why I love you guys also is not because of your vibe, but also because of your honesty. And unfortunately, India में ना एक thought process ये हो गया कि for you to be an achiever, you have to be an achiever at all points of time, at every stage in your life. You have to come first, you have to come first, you have to come first constantly. But हकीकत क्या है ना कि if you're used to coming first, imagine the pressure that you're always in, right? The moment you come second, you're already mind numbed because now your pressure is to get back to being first. But in your case, like you're giving an example of KTs, if you're not in the top in the class, let's say you're in the latter part of the class, even if you keep improving little every day, it doesn't really matter. You're constantly improving. I'll give a little bit of background at my end. I smile about all of this because, again, for me, when it came to studying, I would say that I was a smart student. When I say smart student, not a hardworking student. So I was not the type who would study. But for me, I realized that the IRR or the return that I'm looking at is, I came from, I was born in the, you know, the eastern part of the country, born, brought up in Calcutta, then did my schooling till there, did my college in Pune. And Pune University those days was where like the toppers would get 62-63%. And I could see these toppers, at least in my batch, they would study the whole year, not have a life, just study. And I would do everything other than study. Like, be it a side hustle, be it working somewhere, be it college elections, be it extracurriculars. And I would study maybe that week before the exam, or at times the night before the exam, and I would land up with a 55%. So I realized the ROI of the whole year is getting you, when you study 60-62%, and when you do everything other than studying at 55%, and I realized that, yeah, life में ना बाकी से सब चीज़ भी करना चाहिए. And I guess life pans out the way it is, yeah. I don't know where those stoppers are today, but I definitely know where I am today and what we are doing and how this is a part of my being privileged enough to be in a situation where I have relationships like this that can go across and create this. So I love the fact that you're busting the myth to say ki yaar, to be a super achiever, you have to be a winner always. To be a super achiever, you have to have that hunger, that passion, that shiddat, that junoon, that madness in you. As long as that happens, you can keep building. That's the truth. And I love that you're giving this out as true advice to a lot of our viewers, because this mindset needs to change to say कि यार आपको कुछ बनाने के लिए आप average day one से नहीं हो सकते. There's no concept of average. Everyone has their own aspects, right? As long as you have that crazy ass hunger to build something, you will build it. But now I want to stem down a bit on terms of couple of terms that is used a lot in the business world. And I want you all to outline that as founders, because these are the terms that the new generation thrives on, they live on, right? Jugaad, hustle, bhasad. There are so many terms that keep getting used in life to say that boss बिना जुगाड़ कुछ नहीं हो सकता, बिना hustle कुछ नहीं हो सकता. Life में बहुत सारा भसड़ होगा, but you have to manage all of it. It's a fact that as entrepreneurs, you will have fires that you fight every day. But tell me, do you think, and I'm asking this question again to both of you to give your individualistic perspectives, do you think hustle is a little overrated? Do you think jugaad is a little overrated in today's world? Or do you think it's a key ingredient that needs to be there for you to become a successful entrepreneur? One. Second, what's your interpretation of hustle and jugaad?
You want to go first?
Yeah, I think hustle is a coined word today, right? I don't think it's overrated. It's just coined, like how D2C is coined. You hustle without smartness, I think, is a waste of time. You have to have a plan. You have to have a timeline, right? And then you have to hustle. Like you can. It's not binary. It's not binary. You can't be smart without hustle. You can't hustle without being smart. And I think without hustle, we wouldn't have been able to launch the number of products we've launched. We wouldn't have been able to do the kinds of initiatives we wanted to do and the kind of timelines we wanted to do.
Give an example. What is hustle according to you?
Like we wanted to test out everything in nutrition, right? We wanted to grow. We wanted to become one of the biggest nutrition businesses, and we wanted to launch products across just to understand whether there's a product market fit. So within 3 months, we launched 20
What's
different
a
nutrition
product
products.
market fit?
Whether
Sorry,
there's
I'm not asking for
absolutely.
myself. I'm asking for the sake of our
No, I
viewers.
think that like in first principles,
PMF?
right?
Let's talk about
PMF means, do you have buyers buying your product, and are they having a good experience with your product? Can you get people to buy your product in efficient means, not burning a lot of money, not burning 2 rupees to get 1 rupee of revenue? Can you acquire customers efficiently and continue to do that, right? That's product market fit.
So, tell me honestly, do you guys think that the term both for hustle and jugaad, in some way or the other, one school of thought is that they are overrated. The other school of thought is that they're an absolute ingredient. And people actually interpret hustle also differently. So what's your key? What's your take on the thought process of, thank you. What's your take in terms of thought process of an entrepreneur's interpretation of hustle and an entrepreneur's interpretation of jugaad, and whether it's embedded or does it get curated? How do you define it? Because a lot of our young viewers are very excited by these terms without actually knowing the meaning and the depth of what it is. Take us through that from your mind space.
You know, Vinayak, I think this question is relevant today because LinkedIn has become show and tell, where every founder wants to show any achievement, any sort of initiative or sort of milestone achieved, right? And I think that's where the crust of the problem is, and I think that's where you viewers are confused. I think the best way to build a business is to build it in stealth, and be under the radar. And
what do you mean by be under the radar?
Means don't show and tell everything you're doing, right? Like there is value to working silently, right? And I think people are forgetting that. People are forgetting that there is an edge you can sustain by not being under the nose of everybody, right? And in such competitive markets and landscapes that we operate in, at any industry today that operates in, where things are so digitized and transparent online, like what's the purpose of showing and telling everything you do, right? Not to say that there is no benefit to it. I think you have to funnel that in the right way. But if you just look at natural entrepreneurs, like Jugaad it's one of the senses you have to have. It's one of the intrinsic traits you have to have. It saves a lot of money on your P&L, right? Like just think about the lakhs of money you're saving in payroll, in different areas, just by taking on more ownership, more initiative, and more importantly, you learn your business so much deeper than by just hiring a bunch of people to just look over things where you have sort of a backseat at.
For the benefit of our viewers, give an example. Give an example of a jugaad that you went ahead and utilized, or maybe a hustle that you went ahead and created in your journey. Make it a little more specific, a little more deep down.
I think Rishubh can comment a lot on this, but
I'm going to ask Rishubh a very interesting question after what you've said.
I think just if you look at I think the biggest areas of Jugaad we've done in our business is probably from a marketing front.
So I want to actually now lead on to the very interesting question that you outlined. So he also mentioned about stealth mode. He also mentioned about the power of being invisible. A lot of founders would also say that it's contradictory to building a business which has a brand. To say that the whole idea of building a brand is that you go and shout out from the roof. You don't go stealth. You keep, perhaps showcasing more than what you have also built. A lot of times those filters in terms of what you're trying to create. So in the market, there are two schools of thoughts very contradictory, right? There could be one to say that chup chap kaam karo, put your blinkers on, get your numbers, get that business, get that product market fit, get that viable product, the MVP, get that TG, sell. And the other bit could be that you can't do any of this without actually screaming and shouting out. So marry this thought process and talk a bit about it.
So I'll tell you, you yell out to your consumers what you're doing, right? Show them your brand is larger than life. Not to the LinkedIn community or not to your folks, right? That you're doing something larger than life in terms of business acumen, right? That's where the difference is.
Go a little deeper on that.
So meaning, what I'm trying to say is...
I want to add one more question to it so that you have that layering also. While you consider this, also marry the thought where one person turns around and says, but I am building a D2C company. I am building a company for the consumer. I am a brand. The brand is overlapped into me as a founder. I am the face of the brand. So every time I have to project myself equally, if not more than the business. Talk about that bit also. Because every day we see new facets of founders coming out.
I don't believe in that school of thought, and I very clearly believe, and I've seen it, and I'll talk more, right? So one thesis is, you're the face of the brand, yes, right? Then you show yourself doing things what your brand will do, right? How you use your product, right? But why you shouldn't be going and talking about how a certain initiative impacted revenue in an X way. What are the things which have worked for you as a business? What is doing well for you in a business? That is like you're opening up weaknesses, right? Because other people will know what's working for you and copy it, right? Which is the problem. If you want to be the face of the brand, and suppose if I'm the face of brand, I will show my consumers I'm having ECB every day, right? But will I say that I use an influencer strategy which gave me 10x ROAS is stupid. That's where I come from, right? Or will I say that boss Plix is doing 15 crores a month to everybody? No, I don't need to talk about my numbers. I'll say boss Plix is I'll show me consuming Plix. So that's my thesis on how to do, and I'll tell you very clearly why, right? Building in stealth is what has led Plix to become today what it became. And when the Marico news broke out, everyone was like, what the hell? Who's this company? What is this company, right? Or when we ran on the market, most investors didn't know the numbers we were doing with so less capital because we didn't have competition. People were not trying to replicate what Plix is doing because people thought Plix is nobody, right? Post the news, you see everything is a lot of brands in the D2C space, especially in the nutrition vertical, are exactly copying Plix's playbook, right? Because people are shocked, they are with barely spending 10-15 crores. How is this company build a 150 plus crore ARR company, right? Because there are...
What's an ARR?
ARR is basically your annualized run rate, right? So your monthly revenue into 12 months is what is the revenue you're doing. Because we know brands which have spent maybe 100 to 200 crores plus in doing what they do and yet burning money, right? So compared to that, Plix is profitable. Plix is barely spend any money. Founders own so much equity. What's happening? Right? They're wondering. So this is because we built in stealth, right? We were chup chap. We were focused, head down on our numbers. Ye monthly revenue karna hai, ye grow karna hai. And we were like, let's just do this, right? Keep our heads down. Because when you shout out loud that, oh, Plix apple cider vinegar is doing phenomenally well, then everyone will launch apple cider vinegar, right? And then what happens is that same, so online space, at least for D2C company, right? You have a fixed online space of 100 million consumers. Today, you're the only guy selling them a certain product. Now, when you say you're doing so well, 10 other players will start selling them it. Your market share will obviously drop. There's more people coming. That's what's happened with the sleep vertical, if you see, right? Today, in the US specifically, right? A lot of people started selling sleep. And their entire ethos and that vertical is now crap because there are like 20 players doing it. So
What is the sleep vertical?
So basically sleep products. So when sleep as selling mattresses online was a new thing in online, right? Because no one thought people could sell online, right? So there was one company in the US doing phenomenally well. And since everyone realized sleep is doing well, there are 20 companies doing it. Now when 20 companies doing the unit economics changes, today your customer acquisition cost is 500 rupees when you're the only guy selling it. Just giving a reference. Yeah. Now if 20 people are selling it, means 20 people are selling those same ads. Now your customer acquisition cost goes from 500 to 2000 rupees. Your unit economics go for a toss. Your model, business model, everything will change, right? Now because you're fighting
I want to
against
keep asking
competition.
questions for the benefit of the viewers. What's unit economics?
So basically unit economics, I mean, is when you sell a product, there is a certain math to that product, right? If I'm selling a product for 100 rupees, I can spend only 30 rupees on marketing. My product costs 30 rupees and my 40 rupees is profit, which I need for my salaries, expenses, shipping the product. Now all of a sudden, this is the number I've gone with. And now 20 people are doing it. My marketing expenses, so with 30 rupees becomes 130 rupees. And I'm losing money on the product. So we've seen these things happen. Like honestly talking about it, I've seen this happening even as we speak today, right? When no one knew what Plix was, I was finding it very easy to scale up. Right now, since everyone knows Plix's playbook is a success, people are trying to replicate it. And now it's no more unique. There's no stealth, right? So that's the impact. So that's why I fundamentally believe, right? Building in stealth is the only right way to do it. Do not talk about what's working for you. Keep quiet. Do not do any ARR that your company is doing so much revenue. I know it's a very important angle of fundraising, what people say. But I believe it can be done in quiet also, right? If there is no PR and you go and tell an investor, I'm doing so much good, it's fine. Like why to create inbound? You can go reach out to the investor and do it, which works, get a banker and do it. So that's my thesis. And I think that's the thesis me and Akash have worked with. And I think it's done very well for us. Build and stuff.
I think what's interesting is this question would have such conflicting perspectives because the founder ecosystem is so diverse today. And I think everyone has sort of their own playbook to success. So it's not to say that what Rishubh and I believe is the only way forward. I think it's a very efficient, a very capital efficient means of building a great business. And I think you have to come up with your own winning playbook.
Yeah.
But let's take a step back in terms of what you spoke about, which is capital raising, and how at times shouting out perhaps helps in that capital raising. Creating that FOMO perhaps helps in inbound lead as against reaching out. So take us through your journey of capital raising. A lot of our viewers will be in that stage in their lives over a point of time when they will have to choose between raising capital versus bootstrapping. When they will have to choose about dilution of their equity versus perhaps taking some kind of a debt. Unfortunately, debt is far, far more difficult for startups. And that's where equity comes in as the alternate form of capital, but a far more expensive form of capital, which a lot of founders don't realize that. And they realize, they realize it much later in life when it's actually too late. How does one choose the right form of investors? And I want to hook a few questions, right? How important is the weightage of intangible capital that those investors bring in versus just the tangible check that they cut and bring into the company? A lot of people would want to know the entire nuance of fundraising along with these aspects. Take us through your journeys, take us through your beautiful moments as well as maybe not beautiful moments. But I'll leave that to you all to talk about.
I think our second round of fundraising was a breeze compared to our first round. And I think just looking back, there's probably so many things we could have fixed in our first round of fundraising. Like I'll get into examples, but what's very important is, and it's nuanced, right? Like, unfortunately, what's happened is having that visibility makes it a lot easier to raise funds, and that's why people are in front of the camera publishing things on LinkedIn. But there's another side to it, and I think what Rishubh and I did was we built in stealth. We kept our numbers under hush, and we just, like, we weren't a very sexy company. I think first round we weren't a very sexy company at all. And yeah, like, the downside of not being sexy is you get a lot of no's, right? But at the end of the no is just a no, right? And you move on and you pitch the next investor. And to your second question, right? Like, how valuable is the intangible? It actually is very valuable. Like, I think where people disregard it is when they sort of expect that value add from an investor has to come proportionately and at every stage of growth, whereas they don't understand that it can be slight pushes which give you an acceleration. So the way in my personal journey, right, we've seen that having the right investor with the right knowledge of the sort of ecosystem you're building within, and having like a very first principle approach to it, an outsider's perspective, right? It allowed us to look at problems in ways we never looked at before. It allowed us to leverage their experience, maybe in a different geography, maybe in a different industry, but give a fresh perspective to the industry we're operating in. And it's about those like blitzes, right? Like, if that advice comes in at the right time, it really accelerates you. And I think where founders really disregard the investor community is when they're like, there's no value add. It's just a check. Just go for a check. They're not able to understand your business, etc. Right? But I think that's when your expectation setting is just completely wrong, and you have to realize, yes, financial investors are in the business for very, very different reasons. The passion you have as a founder, they probably don't share for your idea, but by having that exposure that they have,
He's being very polite.
but by having that exposure, right, like, it gives you insight which is very difficult to gather otherwise.
Also to, take a line from what you're saying, they're in the business of investing.
Yeah.
They are not in the business of building a company.
Yeah.
And at times, maybe founders also need to realize that and have that little bit of arm's length thought process to say that there is going to be capital, but more importantly, the intangible that can come in. But finally, building has to be done by the founder.
Yeah.
But what's your opinion?
So
Are you going to be as polite?
No. I'll just give you my thesis, right? I think fundraising is hard, right? It's extremely
But why
hard.
is fundraising celebrated?
I'll talk on that also, right? First is, like, I think when you spoke about should you raise, should you not raise, what is the process of fundraising? So fundraising for most entrepreneurs who have not done it before, right? Or not from the business community, right? Who are not like an IIT plus IIM, tick mark, plus consulting background, and not well networked, it's extremely hard. And though me and Akash, I think, ticked all the check boxes of a fantastic company in our Series A also, we had to face maybe 100 plus rejections. It took us 18 months to raise our first round. Same amount of time where we gave, I think, more than a multiple X return to our investors after they put in capital, right? But that's how much time it took, right? So fundraising is hard, right? Is what I would say. But I think it's important. It gives you a lot of perspective, what is right in your business, what's wrong in your business. So it's good, is what I would say, right? You also spoke about should you raise, should you not raise. I think this is very critical. I think you should understand how much money you need. And if you need the money, definitely raise. And raise only that much amount of money which you need, right? Do not raise because you think the founder will, like, the company is going to give an X valuation and they want 15%, so just let me raise all that money, right? Suppose you need only 50 crores. And most, honestly, to talk about it, D2C businesses do not really need a lot of money to run a business. This is what me and Akash also have realized, right? Just to talk about it, like, if you're a 1,000 crore company and you know that the investor is going to need 15% stake, so, right? So I should, raise 150 crores. While your business only needs 30 crores. Don't raise then, right? Then figure out a loan or figure out how you only raise from friends and families without too many hooks and nuances, right? Because trust me, that 1,000 crore valuation also is going to come and bite back you because you need to give them a 3,000, 4,000 crore
Minimum.
Plus, forget more than that. What do you do with the 150 crores when you don't have a plan to spend it? If the TAM is not so big enough. So
What is the TAM?
Yeah, right. So TAM is basically how big the market is, right? And how much market are you going to acquire from it? Like,
So you want to acronym phase it, that total addressable
total
market? Maybe you
addressable
want to
market
outline
is,
that as well.
So how
I'm
big?
sounding like a teacher asking a question, but yeah, don't hold me to it. I just want our viewers to
So
understand.
TAM is basically the total addressable market, right? how big, suppose weight loss is a category, the weight loss category, how many weight loss consumers are there in it, right? And you define that as the TAM. And then your market share will be the percentage you can take from that TAM. Will be most probably the market you will be able to build. Roughly, that's what it means. But so you need to understand these things and only then raise money and only dilute so much. Because raising a check from a VC is not free money. Let's be very clear, right? While it's obviously no back end that you don't have to repay back the money, but you are answerable, right? You are promising that VC that, boss, today you're entering at 1,000 crore valuation. This company can build into a 3,000 crore company, right? And that's what I'm promising you. Now, if you cannot get there, there will be questions. And both of you guys will not be happy then. Your company can be worth 1,000 crores, but you will not get a dime, trust me, right? Because that money is being put into the company. So be careful in the money you raise, right? That's what my second question is, right? Equity is extremely, what do you call, dear.
Expensive.
Do not expensive.
Most expensive form.
Yeah, right. And you don't think that as an early entrepreneur and you get very fascinated by these numbers. But in the long run, you'll realize that this is something you cherish and do not give it. Not even give 0.1% is what I would say. So that's my thesis on equity plus this thing. And talking on investors, right? Like Akash shared, right? I think for us, the 0 to 1 with me and Akash lived was fine, but our investors definitely helped us from 1 to 10, right? Because we weren't, like I've already spoken, right? We weren't, what do you call, corporate backed individuals. We didn't really have a good outstanding corporate career. We all knew to this, how to hire talent, how to look at plan versus actuals, how to look at data. I think they really helped with a lot of things, how to look at a business from a 3-year perspective, 3-month runways. I think they really helped. So those are, I think, intangibles. But also I would recommend is when you onboard an investor, you do talk to their fellow colleagues or the companies they invested to understand, are these guys the right guys you want to partner with? Because an investment is like a marriage, right? It is a marriage between two souls, right? And till you guys don't exit, it's going to be something you'll have to talk to him every day. And if he's not happy, or he's, if that investor is, you and the investor don't get along, or he's not great with his other fellow portfolio companies, and you know that, then you should think twice. Maybe take a lesser valuation from someone else is what I would recommend.
True.
So all these things should be kept aside when you're looking at fundraising. That's,
in fact, like investors do the diligence on the founders, you've outlined a very important statement that founders need to do diligence on the investors as well.
absolutely.
And why so? Because the true color comes out not in the heydays. It actually comes out in the days where situations have actually gone through the roof in a negative manner. And there's so much of fire because that's where the true face comes out. So a big key takeaway from this would also be that for the viewers to understand that portfolio-based founder diligence, when you speak to several portfolios of that investor to understand the shades of how their investors behaved, is equally important.
Yeah, and one more thing is, don't do a WhatsApp message. Go meet the founder in person, have a beer with him, right? And then you will know the real story. Then take the call.
The liquid courage is what allows people to spill.
Yeah, right.
On this, I want to touch a very important point that you guys spoke about, that in the first round of funding, you guys faced more than 100 rejections, right? What this does, it also impacts the founder mindset. Rejections is not just about fundraising. Fundraising is one part of rejections. For a founder, there are so many challenges that come day in, day out. You want to hire the right talent, you don't have the resources. You want to hire the right, systems, you don't have the resources. You want to get the right partner, you don't have the resources. You want to get the right capital, you get rejected. In this entire turmoil, the no's and the naysayers are far more than actually people who will go across and give you those, and I call them the lifeboats, right? The lifeboats are very, very limited. So I want you all to deep dive, because now you are the poster boy for so many founders to say, yaar, in logon ne macha diya, in logon ne phod diya. But again, I keep emphasizing that no one goes and even asks or checks. I have had so many of founders come and reach out to me asking your stories about how amazing this whole thing was and how beautiful this acquisition was. But nobody wants to go into the background to say how difficult was it to bring it to there. So give a little bit of guidance to our young viewers on that mindset to face rejections. How does a founder stay eternally optimistic? How do you guys always have that smile on your face, even though the eyes actually have the tears which are getting locked out. How does a founder manage to go across and say, nahi yaar, kar lenge? That hope, that sustainability. Does it help when co-founders have that mindset? Would it help if it was that there is more than one person to share the burden with versus only being alone? Because you guys have seen both the journeys. You have seen a journey when you were building alone. You have seen the journey when you guys are building together. How does that sanity stay? How does a founder stay sane?
I think you're right on the second part. Like having a co-founder to absorb the rejections with just makes it so much easier. And I think reason I say it is you have your good days and bad days, right? It could just coincidentally happen that you're having a good day and it rubs off on the other, right? And all of a sudden a bad scenario can be an okay scenario and you can live another day with it. Versus like if I just have a flashback to the days where I was running my business by myself, like every low is a very big low and then you have to kind of like ladder your way up and wake up the next morning and ensure everything's fine, right? Because you have to run your business by yourself. So yeah, I think it's very, very important that you have someone that you can go through the journey with. Fundraising is difficult, and I think like what really keeps you motivated on that journey is I think just like your vision has to be strong enough. Like you have to be doing something that is not for show. Like I keep going back to this because I think the ecosystem and the kind of content everyone's really exposed to today is very, very showy. But building a business is not like building a good business today is not very different than building a very good business a generation prior, right? Where things were not very sexy in terms of business building. Like you don't call your fathers entrepreneurs, but they actually are an entrepreneur.
That was the original form of entrepreneurship.
Right. Like
it's just that there was no PR.
Yeah, there's no. So I think things are getting a little cloudy, and I think if you have the resilience, like if you have a very, very clear vision and you have a very strong vision, and as Rishubh said, like if you're very practical about what you need to build your business on every step of the way, it actually simplifies the process. Like if you start thinking about what the investor wants, right? And you realize that, hey, he only wants a certain % stake, and I have to give him a certain stake. Maybe it becomes a lot more difficult to raise because all of a sudden you limit your investor pool to people that can write such checks. Versus if you get very creative and you find investors of all sizes, like trust me, you'll be able to bridge yourself and build on top of where you are and do it with a lot less baggage and a lot less right offerings than what you maybe have set your mind to. Yeah, you can become very flexible, and I think the great thing with building a business in India today is that ecosystem of investor capital is quite mature and mature at different stages. So if you really open up your eyes and you get creative about what it is your business needs versus what the investor needs, you can really set yourself up well. We'll do something.
I have a great idea, I'll tell you guys. I'm doing something with someone. I'll tell you. Sorry, start again? Yeah, lovely. And even when we finish and close out and all, let that continue, let the camera continue rolling because we'll get a lot of montages of us standing up. Don't cut it like last time. So patience also plays a huge role. What about you? How does Rishubh stay eternally optimistic?
I am very radical, right? So for me, it's like if something is going good, I become extremely optimistic. If something goes bad, I am very negative, right? So I am like very elastic like that. And like for me, it's knee-jerk reactions.
Yeah, I saw a lot of that during the negotiations.
Yeah, you see. Yeah, I'm very knee-jerk, right? I get triggered equally and I get very... So for me, it's... I think for me to stay sane is... you need people, I would say, right? And it's great to have people. It's great to have a co-founder. For me, it was... when I was upset, I would talk to my family. Poonam was part of the business. In fact, like whenever we do dinner, we only talk about Plix, right? That's my, safe holding for me, right? Talk to my family about the issues I face, bitch about everybody who's not doing well into the family, right? And get reaffirmations from them. So I think having a co-founder really helps, right? I know so many times me and Akash just talk for hours and hours on the phone, right? When things are not going well or when we're annoyed with a certain aspect or a certain team or a certain investor, whatever it is, right? So it's very important to talk it out, to let it out. That's what I feel is very important. Otherwise, you keep everything inside you, right? Then you're getting finished, right? You're eating
You're
yourself.
burning out much faster.
Yeah, burning out very fast. So I think it's very important to have a team of people. In fact, for me, even I think at one point of time, right, our investors also share our same concerns and our lows, and they helped us. I think that's one. Also, to say sane, right? What I say, this is some good information, is break your business into day wise, right? And every day is a new battle, right? So today you could be doing badly. You know what you did badly, change it, and then tomorrow you can do better. And that's what we've done, right? It's like literally for us, a business is a share market, right? It goes up and down, highs
Peaks
and
and
lows,
valleys throughout.
peaks and valleys, and then averages on a monthly is what we've seen also, right? So, and it's fun. Like then what happens is, so okay, you had a bad day today, fine. Tomorrow's a new day. Let's start afresh, right? And that's what the team does, right? And that's how we look at a business every day. I think, in fact, that's been one of our recipes of success is Roz Raat ko we do hisab. Every day, in fact, even today, at 12:13 in the night, after the day is over, I will do hisab. Are we profitable? If we're not profitable, I think messages will go out at 1 o'clock in the night only to people.
But also that's a very prudent thing to do, because that's how old school business used to run, right? You used to look at profitability on a daily basis. So खाते में दिखना चाहिए था कि भाई आज मुनाफा है या घाटा है.
Correct,
So
exactly.
you know what you can go across and factor in. And I think also this shows a beautiful mindset, which I keep talking about. Even though you had external capital, a lot of people can have that mindset, ठीक है ना यार, हमने पैसे उठाया करने के लिए. But this mindset shows that there is a distinct thought process to say that you're treating equity also like debt. You're treating equity as third-party money. You're compartmentalizing and saying it's not fungible. End of the day, business has to be profitable. I think that's a great takeaway.
Yeah.
Because जितना आप old school रहोगे इसमें, जितना आप इसमें, like our business, right? Our business is a tough business. It's a business which is person-centric. It's a business where no external capital can come in that easily. Generally, it doesn't. And yet we have to survive every day. We have to make it profitable. We have to ensure we fight. People don't understand that as an advisory business founder, I'm in the same boat. As a founder, I have the same issues, the same pain points, the same challenges. And for me, again, it goes back to the basics. That yaar, profitability आप maintain करके रख रहे हो कि नहीं. So I think that's a great takeaway to say that end of the day, you're looking at your hisab to say कि भाई, are you in the green, are you in the red?
Yeah. In fact, that's what we have. In fact, our sheet, right? If we are burning money, it becomes red. If it's profitable, it shows green. Yeah. Exactly. That, visually also, we made it clear to the team. If there are too many reads, then there's a lot of helter-skelter, right?
No, makes a lot of sense. That's so powerful. That's so powerful. This brings me to a very important aspect of building a business. I heard both of you mention team a lot of times. We understand the power of co-founders. We understand the power of complementary co-founders. We understand the power of a co-founder being able to be a cushion or a shoulder or a wall, depending on the situation, the circumstances. But as co-founders, you also know that, and I say this a lot of times, right, कि इंसान अकेले शायद एक नाव बना ले, लेकिन इकट्ठे बहुत सारे लोगों के साथ एक बहुत बड़ा जहाज बना सकता है. And that's where the power of team comes in. But one of the largest challenges that founders face is to identify the right team, hire the right team, motivate the right team, maintain the right team, and hopefully show them the long haul of the vision. Because बहुत बार क्या होता है, founder का जो vision है, it's very macro. You're very lucky if your team aligns to the macro vision and understands the large scale things. A lot of times teams don't understand. They're very micro. They're very immediate gratification, immediate validation kind of mindset as against long-term gratification. So give us a little bit of your perspective for a lot of our viewers who are trying to build a team, to hire a team. You said a beautiful sports analogy where you said you're as strong as your weakest player.
Yeah.
In business, it states that you're as strong as your weakest link. Yeah. And at times the weakest link would be your team. So you have to strengthen your team. Because that's your catalyst, that's your springboard, right, guys? So talk a bit about hiring. Talk a bit about building that leadership team. Talk a bit about that L1 having that accountability to say, यार Plix सिर्फ 2 founders का नहीं है, हमारा भी company, हम भी बना रहे हैं, हम भी इसमें accountability में है. We also have stakeholding, we also have a mindset. Take us through how does one hire? What are the things to do? What are the things not to do when you're hiring a great team?
I think it's a very good point you brought up, Vinayak. I think it's very important to balance both the short-term and long-term goals with your core team, because you may be able to absorb every single short-term pitfall, knowing what the larger picture is, and given the kind of vesting you have with the larger picture, it just makes it a lot easier for you. Whereas with sort of a core team, with a larger team, you have to calibrate their short-term incentives and goals as well. I think hiring, there are hundreds of books on hiring, how to hire right, how to hire wrong, but unfortunately, everybody makes mistakes hiring. I think there are two ways to build a business, right? One is you have an idea to build a 0 to 100 business as quickly as you can, and it requires a completely different mindset. I think Rishubh and I had a very different mindset towards this, where we want to build sensible, logical business, and we wanted to build a unit economic positive business, right? And that also means that you have to be very conscious about your payroll, very, very conscious about your payroll, right? And you have to hire at the right time, weighing the fact that if this doesn't go right, you can absorb it, and if it goes right, it's great for the business, right? And I think one anecdote is when we hired our head of finance, we spent a lot of time. Like, we hired a head of finance very, very late in our journey, and it allowed us to interview a lot of candidates and also get very comfortable with the department and sort of the nuances with the way things were evolving, both from a compliance perspective, with our fundraising perspective. And we were able to interview a lot of people and understand that, you know what, there are candidates that can be great for this, but probably not a good culture fit. And then there are candidates with like really, really good pedigree, but again, no exposure to what we're doing. And I think finally what we realize is sometimes patience, if you have the liberty, is a very, very strong asset in hiring, being very patient with the kind of leadership you bring on board. Apart from that, I think people really underestimate culture, and culture is always evolving. You may not have a culture on day 0, right? But you may have a goal that one day I want to build a culture. And if you want to build a culture, you really need to get on people that are enabling a culture, that have the traits to enable a culture. And I think at Plix, we did a great job hiring people that are trying to foster a culture, trying to take it up and roll up their sleeves, are interested in building a culture for the company. And I think having a balance of such profiles is what allows you to build a good team. I think that a very idealistic approach towards it can end up, like a very textbook approach towards it can end up backfiring. But again, it all depends on the kind of business and the kind of company you want to build in the future.
How do you define culture?
I think culture is, I think what I believe, right, is what is the DNA you and Akash, me as co-founders have built, and we're able to pass it down to a company.
Because it always trickles down.
It has to trickle down, right? And I think for us, like for Plix, right, the culture we built, because we and Akash have always been so hands-on, right? It's always been hands-on, do it yourself, right? Check numbers daily, right? Plan versus actual, number-driven, right? Do only things if they have incremental benefit. And all of that has to flow down. And if you and Akash really do it and push it onto your team also will imbibe it. I think that's what it is for us. And I think it's very important when you hire a core team or any member, right? Culture has to be fit. That culture fit, I think I will be okay if someone is not so up in the specifications or tech specs in terms of degrees or the things he's supposed to know. But I think he doesn't get the company DNA, right? Or he will not, then it's very difficult for him to survive. So I think that's something which is very important, is what I would say. Like culture is extremely, and culture fit is the most important thing, because otherwise he's not going to be happy. If someone is, especially in a startup, right? Today, a startup, you're hands zero, hands dirty, and then you will go and hire someone who's like a MBB consultant who's Bain, McKinsey, only does top level, has never got his hands dirty. For them to survive in the company becomes extremely difficult. Maybe they do, right? But then they have to be okay with the mindset that, you know what, I'm going to get my hands dirty, right? And that has to be made very clear. I think that's something which is very important in hiring. Second, I think a trick for me in hiring is, what I learned is, at least when you're hiring someone top, right, who's going to lay down the entire, process down, you need to be very clear with the guy you want to hire. So I learned a little bit here. So when I was hiring my retail head, I did not go and immediately hire it. I had a junior guy, worked with him to understand what are the requirements for retail. I myself went down the market, understood what is going to be there, is it successful or not, right? Because what I realized is, when you hire a CXO, right, you don't only hire a CXO, you check a Hathi, and Hathi ko palne ke liye bhi bahut sare sipahi chahiye, right? A lot of fodder is to be given so that Hathi can even accelerate, right? So are you ready to make that commitment to him? Because it's not going to be just one expensive 50 lakh or a 1 crore or whatever resource, right? that 50 lakh resource is going to need 10 other 10 lakh or 2 lakh resources also along with him, right? To be able to deliver that. Are you able to enable that to him?
Yeah.
So spend time for understanding, if you're hiring for a new function, test it out with a small bet of like, suppose hiring a 10 lakh, seeing if there is fruitfulness. If that is, then you take a bigger commitment. Okay, now let's go all in, right? And that's something we do at Plix now very clearly. We take small bet, we see, okay, there is traction, nahi chal raha hai. Now let me go hire the dinosaur, right? And give all the forward to a dinosaur so he can accelerate. That is enable him. So this is my learning from retail, that you cannot just hire one guy and say he will do magic. It's not going to happen. You need to give him his team, resources, all of that. And that's a part of hiring, which I think is very important.
How do you maintain motivation? And more importantly, how do you tackle the worst problem in startup culture, which is attrition?
I think that is, well, we've done a lot of things, right? I think attrition is something finally getting there. We also face
I think we're doing pretty fine on attrition. We have low single digit
How do you
percent
manage
attrition.
that?
How do we manage that?
So I'll tell you, right? In the start, right? Then it also matters as a company. What happened is in the start, right? Let's be candid here. I think we hired a lot of talent, thinking we've raised capital and all, and we realized culture fit is not there, which I spoke about it. And a lot of people also left, right? So two things happened because of the reasons for them leaving. Also, I think we weren't growing, times were difficult, right? And I think me as founders, Akash and us also were a little bit pushy because we had to hit our numbers, right? And I think it was not a great culture, and we were learning, right? So I think as we learned, we realized the things needed to be done. We set processes, built systems in place. And I think as the company grew, right, everyone started imbibing the success. So people started liking what they're doing, realized that, boss, this is the company to be, right? This is where the action is happening. Let me not move away. We started giving our employees a lot of liberty in building things. I think before, right, for me, I wanted to do everything. And I did not give a lot of ownership. So I would say as your task improves, you cannot do only anything. So I also learned this from, I think, a lot from my investors and everyone. Let's give our team ownership to do, right? And as I realized, I started giving them ownership. They liked what they were building. They were accountable for their own P&L everywhere. Yeah. I think all those things helped in building the culture and improving attrition. People liked working at Plix. They were seeing that, boss, these companies are not star in digital marketing. Let me be a part of this. I think all those things definitely helped in reducing attrition from what it was. Because first, I think it was very toxic, I'll be honest, right? At one point, it might have been toxic because numbers weren't growing. We were pushing our team. And we wanted to be a part of everything. Now, what we've realized is let them build. Let them give them 3 months. Give them the team to build it, right? Let's set reasonable goals. And as the company is growing, a lot of things are falling into place, right?
Yeah. I think pragmatism also comes in with success.
With success. I think growth solves everything. To be honest,
growth solves
everything. That's what I say. Right? 6 months of plateau, there'll be attrition, right? But if you're growing like a rocket ship, everyone wants to be there.
But the toughest thing is that what people don't realize is growth doesn't come easy.
Yeah.
So this brings me to a very interesting thing where I told you to hold your thought because I would come back and ask you this. The founder emotion, a lot of times founders are extremely emotionally connected to what they're building. It's their baby. It's as good as their own children,
right,
or their own child. And then there is this whole concept of understanding and learning with so much of maturity to say that perhaps this is the right time, that the baby has grown into a particular level and age, that he or she will be best suited in a different house where that particular catalyst element could come in. That so-called postpartum depression to deal with as founders. Founders also have that massive depression, to say that how can we go across and let that ever go and change hands. That ego to say that I can keep building, keep raising, keep trying to hustle, keep trying to create, but to understand that maybe at times an acquisition is the right fitment for the entire ecosystem, not just internally in the cap table, but perhaps the larger ecosystem which is also sitting on the fence and watching and looking for these kind of moments.
Yeah.
What that resulted in was for 2 young boys to create the largest D2C exit in the country, which you're not talking too much about because you're being humble, but it's a 600 crore plus valued exit. But it also would have come with that mindset to say that that company will, over a point of time, not be yours anymore. How does a founder deal with that mindset and get that maturity to know this perhaps is better for the larger ecosystem as against my personal ego to say ये तो मेरा company है, मैं बनाता जाऊंगा, मेरा ही बच्चा है, मैं ही लाला हूँ. So that element of moving from a lala and resounding enough to say that this is what will create perhaps 10 more Plixes in the future, because now they have a path play, or they have a code to follow, a particular method to follow, or a playbook to follow, which you guys have set out. How does that mindset come? So the reason I ask this is because a lot of our viewers will, over a point of time, deal with these emotions. Right now, they may be young, they may be in the middle, they may be a different demographic, but they will come through these emotions to know, I have to let this go at the right time, versus no, I want to hold on. Take us through that mental maturity. Take us through those emotions. Take us through those decisions that, of course, I was very fortunate to be a part of several of those, but I want a very founder perspective mindset. Take us through that.
You know, what's very interesting is I had a lot of these conversations with my father. My father's like, why do you want to sell your business? And I think it comes from a different generation where this is probably not very common, especially at such a young age. And then
Unheard of.
So I've had these conversations, right? And I think I may sound more stern than like audience probably would expect from a question like this. But I think it all really depends on why did you even start this business, right? Like, is it a hobby? If it's a hobby, then yeah, I understand that there's a lot of emotional factors. And then if it was a hobby, then again, like your cap table, etc., has different sort of variables attached to it, right? But at least for me, right, Plix is not a hobby. Plix is a business, right? It's a lot of fun building this business, and I get a lot of enjoyment and thrill from building, right? But at the end of the day, like, entrepreneurship is wealth generation.
True.
So if you have your end goal in sight, it's a means to the end, right? And it's not an end as such. It's a temporary end, right? It's like, I think what really excites me is, you know what, in the future, if I've built something so great along with Rishubh, like, why can't I do it again in something totally different than what I did the first time, right? And I think just using every experience, using every milestone, and saying that, you know what, this is a stepping stone to do something maybe even cooler, even bigger, even more impactful down the line. I think it opens up a lot of doors. And for me, that's the way I look at it. Like, you know what, as long as the people that have built this business with you are taken care of, they're in good hands, you're able to independently add value and sort of build your vision further in the way you want it to. And if you can complete that, then you know what, remember why you got into this game and use that to your advantage. Use it as a stepping stone and do something greater. Do something that, it's a decade of building. For me, it's going to be a decade of building once this entire thing ends. And I think a decade is a very good time in today's fast-moving
massive time.
Digital environment where you can make an impact and realize that, hey, maybe I have other adventures in life that I want to build.
Was it as easy for you?
So I'll tell you, right? For me, it was, I think, like Akash said, one, definitely, I think financial outcome definitely plays a major role, right? But also the second thing is, you need to understand, like, when is the right time to depart, right? Today, I think what me and Akash were amazing at doing is building an online business. And being an online business, after a certain point, has a break point, right? And I think that was one, right? Is कि online कब तक करेंगे? At one point, it'll be limiting, right? And the amount of ROI you put in to the return you get will diminish after a certain scale. Like, it's the law of marginal utility, right? After a certain point of time, the ROI, DMU, right? Which you would have learned in economics. Not many things I learned, but this I did it. But so I realized that, right? And obviously, and the next growth phase will come from distribution, right? And I know for a matter of fact very clearly, me and Akash know nothing about distribution, nothing about retail. We've not even done it, right? And it's a patient game, which companies like Marico or everyone else have built over a period of 50 to 100 years. Why not leverage that, right? And do the question the same way when we raise money, right? That was the question also, right? Then also it's not going to be our business when we raise capital, right? And we gave 20% out, right? And we were like, we need this to jump our business. The same way, I think getting Marico on board to build distribution is the next phase of growth, which is there. Plus, also for me, I think apart from this, you know how in TV shows, right? You have season 1, season 2, season 3. It doesn't end, right?
Lifeboat has season 1. Hopefully season 2,
yeah,
season
right?
3, season 4.
You want a lot of your stories to end. This is a great end for me and Akash, right? After a certain period of 4 to 5 years, which we will see. And like he said, right, I think then you can do something else in life, right? And learn more. But what also this has enabled us is being able to see the full picture. From starting a business to be bootstrapped, to raising capital, then to partnering with an strategic, and then finishing it. And this has given me so much learning, right?
To giving returns of multiples.
Yeah, right. And so many learnings, so much networking has been done, right? So I know now what is to be done even when I do something next, right?
So it'll be easier.
It'll be easier, plus the knowledge, right? And the network of people I met doing all of these things, right, has made me like 100 times smarter. People say that you're only as smart as the people around you, right? And that is so true. I think I was the person I was when I started this business 4 years back, and today I am, right? It's like groundbreaking realities. It's only not because I've changed, right? It's because the people I've met, right, who've told me so many things which I've implemented. My team, my co-team, my lawyers, my bankers, the Marico team, everybody else, other founders, which has shaped you, right? And I want to do more, right? I know today in the Nutra industry or a D2C industry, what if I want to do something else tomorrow, right? I want that learning. That is not going to come until I move away from this.
I think it's very, very important because I'll give you a small example. So I'm privileged of belonging to a profession where I get to advise fantastic people like yourselves. And the best part is that every time I advise someone, I also learn. Because every time I'm meeting a new founder, a new investor, it's a new mindset. Forget what I'm doing in terms of real-time work, even this passion project of mine. The amount of learning and unlearning that I have done in terms of just meeting and talking to people itself showcases the value of, truly, I won't use the word network. Network is not the right word, but the value of having that right cohort of ecosystem around you. I think that's what you're indicating towards, which is very important. I want to link this question to another very, immediate, obvious question that viewers may have. I know that when the opportunity had come, there were multiple term sheets on the table. When this situation arises that you've now, as co-founders, had a discussion, concluded that this might be the best path forward, discussed with the investors, concluded with them that they are going across and looking at a particular exit and are happy about it. But how does one choose the right partner? In this case, Marico is a fantastic name. But I also know that you had other options around, right? What made you choose that right partner? Without even taking specific example of maybe, the name that we are mentioning here, but for our viewers, if there are potential suitors, what I want to take from you and your mind space is, how do those viewers then decide the right and the wrong in terms of who to go for versus who not? Are there some playbook rules around this? Are there some specific points that they need to be aware of? Is it more of a gut call of a DNA fit in terms of who you're getting into that marriage with? Because an acquisition exit is also a form of a marriage over a point of time, which has a full exit, right? So there are a lot of softer intangibles that are also very, very important. So is there a playbook to choose the right suitor? Would you all like to outline some thought process for the viewers to say that these are the things that you should be careful about, or these are the things that we said, or reasons why we said yes to one and no to somebody else?
Yeah, I think what's very, very important, right, is to understand that when you're going through an acquisition, very rarely do you have a 100% acquisition at day one, right? It's typically always a phase one, and especially if you're building FMCG or D2C, it's even more common that it's a phased acquisition. So in reality, you're getting into another marriage, right? And Rishubh and I, we had visions of how we wanted to build the business further and what we wanted to do to build the business to the next level. And what's very important is finding a partner that is supportive, that sees synergy in your vision and their vision for the brand. And that's what worked out with Marico. They are allowing us to independently run the business exactly the way we were running it prior. They don't have their own management in the business, and we're able to take the calls, and they trust us with taking the calls that we've aligned with them. And I think that's very important, right? Having a partner that has a vision for themselves for the brand, but also allows you to build it in the way you had set out to build it. And personally, I think that's one thing we were really looking out for, and it's what we got in our partner.
So I think I'll add on 2-3 other things. One is, I think, definitely the vision. Second is, for me and Akash, what gave a lot of comfort is they had done a couple of these before, right? And when we spoke to other founders who were working with them, right, they shared positive reaffirmations, right? Compared to a lot of other players who were just starting to take bets on D2C, right? So we didn't know how the outcome would be, correct? So that was one big concern for us. Here we at least knew, right? We had positive reaffirmations on different companies that already bought, and we had spoken to them, right? So that was one. I think third is also, I think what also matters, while I think vision is important, positive feedback from different players is important. Also, third, what is the final outcome, right? How competitive it is? Is it fair enough, right? So when we evaluated the 3-4 final outcomes, we realized that the most fair and the correct way to go forward, because they might be offering it certain value today, but you are yet in marriage with them for next 3 years, right? And after 3 years, what is the outcome? Are they being fair, or are they putting unreasonable demands, right? Which, will give them like a upper hand later on, right? After evaluating, we realized that this is the best and most comfortable place you want to be with, right?
Yeah.
And they understood even the final outcome very clearly. They weren't unrealistic in terms of the expectations from us as founders, right? Ki this is what we want. We know this is real, which is very important.
The question is to you, so you have to answer.
Oh, I thought you were asking the question again.
I've answered the question, like I forgot. I've said I can't say the same emotion of the question again. Just answer, man. So, in conclusion, what you're saying again comes back to the same fact, which is so aligned to even the first part that we spoke about, intangibles and DNA.
Correct.
So, even in this situation, the DNA matters so much. The fitment matters so much. So true. So tell me, along with that, there is this other facet of life that has a huge relevance in the lives of founders. And that is about the essence of Lifeboats and also the role that good advisors play in the lives of founders. And you guys have gone through a lot of interesting peaks and valleys, which I am aware of, interesting emotional curves, which I am aware of. Talk a bit about the relevance of having the right advisors. Do they act as lifeboats? Do they act as that sounding board, that safety net? How does one choose the right advisor? What are the nuances that move a relationship? And typically advisors, the relationship always starts, guys, with something very transactional, right? Very at an object at hand, at an agenda at hand, at a transaction or maybe a situation at hand, which is where the mandates and all the nonsense related terms come into play. I don't want to use nonsense, but I'm saying transactional nuances, right? But then it moves to something which is far deeper. It moves to a situation where it's as good as it can get in terms of literally trust. A lot of other aspects, right? You feel like it's family away from family. It leads to a situation where we are doing what we are doing sitting here in Akash's beautiful house. But take us through your journey and your views of how important and how relevant is having the right advisors. And what does an advisor do correctly or do in a manner? And there's a reason I ask this, right? A lot of our viewers, and this is also one part of our viewers, where a lot of our viewers will be young advisors. They'll also be watching this. They'll also be building their own clientele. They'll also be building their own relationships. And this is also one way of giving back to that ecosystem, because I belong to maybe 3-4 ecosystems now. One being the founder ecosystem, one being the investors, one being the clients, and one being the fellow professionals, the fellow advisors. A lot of people would want this equation with their clients. A lot of people would want this nuance of how the currency of trust is, right? How does that happen? How does a founder and an advisor move to this relationship? How does an advisor, from just being an advisor, move to being hopefully a brother, hopefully a lifeboat? So take us through that emotional journey. Take us through what you all feel about it.
I think we did a lot of evaluation when we were looking for the right professional partner, right, to represent us. And I think when you've done it once, you realize that it's not just the outcome, it's the journey that is very important. And then when you take a step further, right, you realize that you're going to be spending a lot of time with this with. Let it be your banker, let it be your lawyer. You're going to be spending a lot of time, and you also want to find people that you want to find people whose judgment you can sincerely trust. And I think if you're able to find somebody, and I don't know exactly how you. I think for Rishubh and I, we just saw it in you, right? We saw it in our bankers. We saw it in you that, you know what, these guys are the ones we're going to trust because they've done it. They're very contextualized. They've done it for people similar to us, companies similar to us. They've been able to represent struggles that we potentially will have and have maybe had prior with other startups, right? And I think that's one of the easiest ways to judge whether this relationship is going to be fruitful or not. Second is, I think, character. I think character is very, very underrated. Like, you're hiring a firm, but at the end of the day, in your industry, firms are represented by people. It's human capital, right? That you're partnering with. And I think finding people whose character you gel with, that you can sort of build a relationship with outside of work is very important. And I think we saw that. Like, it was very easy for Rishubh and I to really align on the professional partners we brought on board, because I think the characters just gelled very well. We saw that relevant experience was there at our level, right? Like, you can go out and hire the best banker in the world or the best lawyer in the world, but if they don't have the context of your ecosystem, your struggles, your level, all of a sudden you're buying into a name. You're not buying into a relationship.
So for me, I'll tell you, right? I think you say Lifeboat, right? And I'll say, right, on building a business, right, you need multiple lifeboats, right? And you need to get the right advice from the right people. From personal experience, me and Akash have suffered immensely from getting incorrect advice, right? And in the final and grand scheme of things, I think it is hurting us in terms of, I think, numbers you cannot even fathom, right? So I think we've really realized the importance of right counsel, right advice at the right time, right? And it's very important, right? Because the stakes are so high. And you're not talking what do you call, like couple hundred rupees or couple lakhs, right? Here, the numbers, the financials also are huge, right? And everything is time bound, where you don't have a learning curve in this, right? Today, you cannot say that I'm going to do this deal. Let me try and experiment 5 guys and 5 different deals. And my 6th deal I'll get right. This is a once in a lifetime opportunity, right? So to get the right people on board and to even trust them, you have a one chance, right? So it's very important to get the right team on board. And I think it's very important, right? And for me, to come to a conclusion who's the right guy, I think is being able to understand if he understands the problem, like Akash said, right? That's one. And second is, does he understand your pain, right? And can he be a friend to you? For me, with you, right? I can call you up at 2 o'clock in the night and trouble you, and I know you'll answer, right? Which is very important. And can I also be that after that 2 o'clock call, can I just blindly agree with what he said without, challenging it and saying that, boss, Vinayak has said this, let me go with this, that's it, right? I don't want to know, because I'm not the guy expert here, right? Hey, and I've been able to do that, right? And that's where the comfort I get. And that's how important your lifeboat's going to be, right? To blindly back his advice, right? On a transaction which is huge, right? And it's a once in a lifetime opportunity. So that's where I think it's important. Multiple times it's happened. I remember, like, just highlighting the 2 o'clock conversation, and we were like, boss, Vinayak, fad gaya, yaar, ye to ye maang rahe, yaar, kya kare hum? And then he would spend 1 hour literally saying, yaar, this is step A, then if he says this, then do this. If he says step B, then do this. And like, after that call, you were reassured, yaar, ki, boss, I have the firepower to go. And if something else happens, Vinayak is like, I will be a phone call away, get me into that call, right? So I think these things get a lot of comfort. And it's very important to have these guys in your armory, is what I would say.
And I think even the phone calls, you keep troubling me, but I think also the amount of drama and the emotion we had on the negotiation table, I think that was also beautiful. And a lot of it, I think, stems from the fact that, as you said, right, I guess the biggest commonality, and I keep saying this, that once you turn into an entrepreneur, you get a lifetime membership to a club called the Empathy Club. And when you have common empathy, you somehow realize that it's the same pain, we're all going through it. So that's how it is. And I've been grateful. I've been fortunate and very grateful to have had the privilege of representing both of you, not because of what you've built and what you created, but more importantly because of the mindset that I saw in 2 young founders who are far more mature than their age and their vintage showcases. And more importantly, the passion has been so if I may use the word, it's contagious, right? I saw it across, and I saw that contagious passion flow out to my team as well. And that's why perhaps, it's a rare occasion where the founders and the advisors are on the table for 36 hours, 48 hours without batting a wing to get that deal done. And I think that's what holds us all together. So this brings us to, the penultimate segment. Let's talk about personally for you both. And a lot of this also needs to go across and outline as great learnings. For you as founders, what is your definition of a lifeboat? And how and in which way do you think a lifeboat can actually change the life of a founder when they're trying to build something? More so because for me, bhai, what is the purpose of this show? A lot of the purpose of this show is that the learnings of this show can become lifeboats for people who don't have the access, the privilege, the network that a lot of you have had the benefit of, because they're perhaps few years away to reach where you are. And the learnings from amazing people like you who have been there and done that acts as their lifeboat to be able to act as that catalyst in the springboard to take them ahead in their journey. But in your journey, you've had your own lifeboats. You've had your own drowning moments. So take us through what your lifeboats are, what is the meaning of the lifeboat, and finally, what do you think of what we are building here? What do you think of this show, this conversation, this moment?
So I'll tell you, I think in this entire journey, right, you will have multiple lifeboats, right, across, right. It's maybe only 3 years, right, but I think me and Akash would have gone through where we did multiple times we need saving. I remember this one time since we were bootstrapped, right, and we didn't have capital, right, and I think Akash's father helped us out at one point. That was a major financial lifeboat, right, when VCs weren't willing to take a bet on us, right. So while people say a lot, कि यार family business है नहीं है, but I think family is the core, right? And even for us, right? Me and Akash as co-founders, getting financial capital. Even when I was running this business alone, right? I've leveraged a lot of my dad's resources to build a company.
Yeah.
So I think for us, I think one thing is your family becomes your major lifeboat. Just to even talk about your problems, to go to your safe space, right? Help financially when needed is what I've seen, right? In fact, I'll tell you, like even in the start of the business, a lot of the things I did, like in terms of accounting, web development, were done by friends and families who did it at economical prices or just like cost and not keeping their markups, right? So that's how important it's been. As we go through this journey, you realize that your 0 to 1 you've solved, your 1 to 10 may, you really need a lot of saving when it comes to taking right decisions, sanity, where I think your investors, your counsel, your bankers will help you out, right? Which is, I think, another thing which is critical, which I believe is important. And for me, I think during the deal, right, my 2 major lifeboats were my banker and my lawyer, right? Because it's not a 5-day transaction, it's a 10-month marathon, right? And you're doing it for the first time, while your bankers and your lawyers have your experience for like over 10 months and you've done this, like this is their bread and butter, right? You do aaj deal, kal deal, parsu deal, road deal, they do, right? So for them, they have the experience. So for us, whenever we were concerned or when me and Akash had arguments or whatever, our bankers and lawyers would help us solve it, right? And they became our go-to for everything, like a lot of decision making, because these guys were the experts here, right? And I think it's very important, right? And I feel that relationship we built with them over the last 10 months, I think it'll go on for lifetime now, right? I to believe I need Vinayak for everything now.
Right? That's scary, huh? knowing the radical character that he is, that's very scary.
10 months to stick it, but the stuff we do, right? I think to protect me from what all I've signed also, right?
Or what you're going to in future sign, God knows.
Future sign, right? Yeah. I think I need a savior, right? So I think it's very important. You will have multiple and you should cherish these guys and acknowledge it and make sure that the relationship is there so that even in the future, you can leverage them or use them. And it's a two-way street.
Yeah.
I think you can, I think Rishabh's candidly put it, like pretty much everybody along the journey has added value, right? And that in my mind defines them as a lifeboat. And it's, you can't buy a lifeboat, right? It's something that you have to reflect back on and realize that, you know what, this person added value here, this person added value here. And it's just like a bank of different memories, different sort of positive impacts in your journey that you can go back, that you can go to one day, like today on your podcast, and be like, you know what, these people added value in so many ways, and so many more people have added value, right? And I think just like Rishubh, it's family. Like Poonam, she's like a third co-founder for us, right? She's absorbed so much, and she's been in the middle of us, right? When Rishubh and I would have our tiffs, when we would disagree, like Poonam would always have to be in the middle of it, and take a very, very neutral view towards things. And like that is such an important lifeboat when you have two co-founders running a business, and you need to problem solve and resolve disputes. I think she's been immensely helpful, even in calibrating Rishubh and my relationship and ensuring it's a very healthy one throughout the years.
And you know, it's actually the more you emphasize, the less it is, because when you have a person who has to manage the family relationship, along with act as that mediator, along with wear a professional hat, I think emotionally that person has far more pressure than the two people, especially if there's a situation of even, I don't want to use terms like conflict, but even when you have a difference of opinion, right? Because as founders, we are inherently emotional people. So, you know, between my partners, we have this adage where everyone's so drastically different. They're completely different from each other. They're so easy to go across and everyone's crazy. And as you know, lawyers typically you are as is emotional. You're dealing with emotions of yourselves and others on a day in day out basis. But what the biggest grounding force, if I may call it, the biggest the tying force for all of us is that we believe in this adage called celebrate the differences. Because you are supposed to be different. If you're going to go across and have everyone follow one word, that's also problematic. If you're going to have everyone constantly say different things, that's also problematic. But when you have that respect, when you have that, thought process to say that, yes, there is an opinion which you need to give respect to, but celebrate that difference of opinion and find a conclusion, I think that matters to a great extent. And that's what keeps things going. And I'm very glad that you guys had that between yourselves, and you had a person in between who's a family member to be able to be your lifeboat.
Yeah.
So, and I'm of course very, very grateful, because in less than or maybe a year odd, I think our relationship has evolved at a very different level. Yeah. And I guess it's a two-way street. And I'm very proud of what you guys have built. I'm very proud of what you will in future build. And I know that we will always be a part of doing different things together.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. So this brings us to a very interesting last segment of this wonderful show. And as authentic as it can get, as original as it can get, as amazing as it can get, my team is inspired by, I don't know how and in which way, a very, very Bollywoodish aspect. And there's some rapid fire questions, which are called Lifeboat shots. Very original, isn't it? Don't ask for a hamper, because there is no hamper other than love and affection. But we will go through this, and you can answer one by one. I'm going to ask different questions to different people. So Akash, to start with you. Mm-hmm. If you had the chance to make one thing right, one moment of your life extremely, extremely exciting and right, what would that be?
I think
get a better lawyer the first time.
Thank God you said the first time.
No, I think having more structure in our initial days of how we wanted to build, and how, like, what exactly our end goals were, how Rishubh and I would sort of look at what this business looks like, what our relationship looks like, probably 5-7 years down the line. I don't think we gave it much thought. Things really just fell into place and sort of things aligned. But I think having more visibility, clarity, discussing it more openly would have been something which would have helped a lot.
True. Yeah. If you had a chance, Rishubh, to relive one memory, what would it be?
Sorry. Go on.
I was thinking the credit. But yeah, go ahead.
So I think two things I would like to say. I think one is the credit.
Shucks, he actually said that.
Right? One, I think, is the credit, which is the happy memory. And another is, there was this point in time, right, where I think 6 months after the first fundraise, we were flatlined for 6 months. And after raising so much money, we didn't grow for 6 months. We had a lot of pressure. And I yet remember this conversation in the boardroom we had, right, with one of our investors, Mohit, who was handling our company, right? And he's like, boss, grow karenge kya hum? And I was like, nahi yaar. And I was absolutely dejected, right? I was like, kuch nahi hoga yaar. I don't think we'll ever grow, right? And that's a great reflection point for me because from there, right, we've grown 10x in 12 months. And you're sitting here today, right? And I think I love that memory because that was the point, right, where we were absolutely dejected, but we didn't lose hope.
You know what I call it? So I have a terminology for it. It's called the bottom of the barrel moment.
Yeah,
Because the speciality and the USP of the bottom of the barrel moment is that there's only one direction.
correct. It's only going up, right? And I think that is so phenomenal. And I always go back to that, saying that, Rishubh, if you could survive that, right, where you had like maybe 30% EBITDA burn, right, and no growth for 6 months after having so much money in the bank and no problems being solved. And if you go from there,
What's EBITDA?
earnings before interest, and basically
Tax
losses you make. Yeah.
depreciation,
I'm not a technical guy, loss you make. Right? And if you can go from there and get up, right, means you can do from it. So it's, I think, very close to me.
Okay, I'm going to ask a question which Priyanta won't like, but I have to because the team has written some very exciting questions. If you could get a chance to go on a date with a popular person, which popular figure would you like to go on a date with?
I don't know. Yeah. Like, I've never thought about this.
I know you're trying to play it safe, but
No. I'm not playing it safe. Yeah.
and don't use your sales and marketing head and start thinking from influencer marketing perspective.
No, yeah. I have no answer to this. Yeah. Like, I will go on a date with Priyanta. I'm happy. I'm a very satisfied person.
God. Can't believe we played it safe on a rapid fire. Yeah. Okay, very interesting.
Are you going to ask me the same question?
No, I want to ask you something with a little bit of
You're,
more
you're
tweak.
saving my relationship too. Vinayak.
If Rishubh was single,
Uh-huh.
think he's single because he obviously played it safe. Which popular person would you want him not to date? I love what my team's written here. I don't know why they are so influenced by these Bollywood questions, but yeah.
Dude, I think...
Do you realize not to date?
Yeah, I got it. It's a very tough one. I think Rishabh's pretty grounded. I don't think he has any bad habits. So I don't think he would be influenced regardless, whoever he'd be with. No, but I wish him the best. I think he'd make.
You guys are really disgustingly safe in this question.
These are not. You need to think about these questions. You can't answer it.
That was the purpose, I guess, the teams put it. I'm also reading for the first time, so please.
I don't think someone would have. I don't think someone's bad influence would rub off on Rishabh.
Okay. I don't know what he's answered and how it's relevant to the question, but it's okay. Okay. Akash, tell us 2 things, one funny and one not so funny about yourself, which even Rishubh doesn't know.
Funny, I think whenever I speak Hindi, everybody laughs because
The whole world
of
knows
my
that, bro. I mean, like, the idea was for it to be something that people don't know, especially I mentioned Rishubh means it has to be that private.
Getting the air purifier.
Yeah, that was an insane thing. Yeah, you want to talk about your air purifier? The guy that carries the air.
I like fancy gadgets. I like to bring them. I like to bring them places. I like to bring
So
them.
why
on
don't you talk
relaxed
about the thing that wherever you walk, there's a guy with an air purifier walking?
No, guys, that was not me. When I started paint me like a different guy, but
And I'm not cutting this. We both knew the air purifier came.
I'm public service, guys. I mean, I'm
Okay, I think we're going to move to the next question. Very interesting. Common question for both of you. I would love to hear both of your answers. If you could have any superpower for one day, what would it be and why?
I would control Facebook CPMs.
That's one day. That would have short-term impact.
No, long term, I will make it 0. Enough ROI for the entire year.
Explain CPM.
So basically, CPM is the cost you pay for 1,000 impressions. So at this point of time, you would be paying around 200 to 400 rupees to reach 1,000 people on Facebook. I'll make it 0. Free advertising.
Imagine I'm making people learn even from random rapid fires. What superpower would you want for one day and why?
Dude, I think Rishabh answered a business one, I'll answer a non-business one.
Thank
I think,
God for that.
I think
This was supposed to be personal. We took it to CPM.
I think if you can just make everybody compassionate for a day, everybody in the world compassionate for a day, I think it'll just have a ripple.
Yeah, it'll have a
And I think
massive-
that would have a lasting impact on society.
That's deep. I like that. They had to write this for you. If you could eat only one type of food for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Oh, I love dosas. I think I can yet do dosas every day for breakfast. And I think my wife makes the most amazing type of dosa. She will make 7 varieties of dosa in one time. Like I'll have a chili cheese, a malka puri, a plain sada, chili masala, paneer chili, pav bhaji dosa. I love dosas. So I can have dosas whenever.
Okay. If you had to keep one food away from Rishubh, what would that be? If you wanted to starve and die in this situation, you would just take
So
the dosa
both
away.
Rishabh and Poonam are very similar. I think they have very similar food preferences. They love chaat. They love samosas. Pretty much everything like what?
Unhealthy.
Unhealthy. Yeah. So I think, yeah, pretty much anything fried.
Makes sense. Mobile or book?
Book, but I use my mobile way more often.
Which one are you reading right now?
Right now, I'm not reading one. Actually, a friend recommended a book called The Second Mountain. It's
By?
about, I don't recall who the author is, but it's about how you live your second innings. Like, what do you do after you've achieved your first mountain of success?
How does it feel like reading about the second inning at 30s?
People are like batting the
Dude,
first
people ask
At
me,
60, people are still playing the first innings. Shame on you, man.
dude, Vinayak, there's pressure. People ask you, what are you going to do next? You have to start from ground zero and build up.
No, in fact, I was also asked this
It's
question.
intimidating.
I was asked this question. Now that you've achieved success, your second venture, you have such high bars. What are you going to do? I'm like, I don't know.
Tell them to give you a break, man. Video calls or personal meetings?
Personal meetings.
Movies in theatre or movies in OTT?
Movies and OTT. I think OTT has just killed it in the past 3-4 years.
I think it's the biggest democratizing platform that's ever happened to,
And they have budgets. They have budgets now.
it's brilliant. It's just brilliant.
There are more budgets in movies, yeah? Like OTTs have 100 crore budgets.
Yeah, of course. Massive. But it's also, it's changed the game for, creative people. I have a whole bunch of creative friends and I'm so happy for them. Very interesting. I love this. I think these guys have some evil mind when they've thought about you and asked.
Is this your legal team or is this your content team that's coming
my
up?
content team? My legal team would bill you for this.
Oh. I thought after a year of spending time with them, they're like, I want to pinch Rishubh here and pinch Akash here.
This is my content team, my friend. Rishubh, you can only choose one. Your go-to person, Poonam or Akash?
That's an easy one.
Okay. If you could go back to, and this I like this question a lot, If you could go back in time and give your younger self that one piece of advice, and this is for both of you, what would it be?
My younger self.
And think of it, if it can go any more younger.
Yeah, be less short-tempered, right? That knee-jerk reaction and that anger which comes out, you need to control it a bit.
I think it's come down to a great extent now. Again, growth manifests, positive environments, but yeah,
Yes.
fair.
I think have more structure in terms of what you want to do with your life. Have a little bit more, just approach everything with a little bit more of a structured mind. You'll be able
I
to.
think it's anal retentive.
I'm what?
Can we use the word anal retentive?
Akash is very like 0 to 1, right? It's all about structure. It's
Imagine
1 or it's 0.
Imagine
There's
asked
no
him if he could give
90.
them one piece of advice. He's already structured. He's talking about himself. If I could get more structured, I would like to
No, I
see
wasn't-
exactly in this position.
I wasn't very structured growing up. Wasn't very structured at all. I think that's a trait I've built
over
in
a
my
point of time.
once I've got into in my professional career, professional career. Yeah, I don't think I was very structured growing up, and I think could have done a lot more if I was. Could have read a lot more. Could have I don't know, just played a lot more things, played a lot more sports.
For both of you, What is that something that you've been meaning to try and learn, but you've not had the time and opportunity yet? And now that you have enough time and opportunity, what is that one skill that you would like to learn?
Thing I would like to learn, I can say. Skill, I don't know. I want to learn how to fly a plane.
I was just going to say the same thing. I was going to say the same thing.
Disaster management philosophy, don't fly the same. Yeah. All right, that brings us to the end and the last question. For season 2 of Lifeboat, who would you like to nominate? And I'm
Us again.
and I'm going to hold you both to it because you are going to go across and invite that person on my behalf. And I'm going to use the benefit of having two founders here, so individual names.
We will nominate.
You will nominate.
I will
He can nominate for himself.
You can interview Vedang from Soul Store.
Okay.
Yeah, he was an angel.
He was an angel in Plix.
A very happy angel.
A very happy angel, I think. Yeah.
So I'll hold you to it. You will have to make that call out for me. What about you?
Dude, I think I don't know. Get on Arjun Vaidya if he's not already on your thing.
Yeah, Vaidya is a friend. Yeah, he's going to be there in the next one for sure. But other than Vaidya, see, I'm also a founder. I'm doing my Jugaad here. Who I know as a friend. Why should I use the
I figured. Get on Sahil from Patello.
All right. That's nice. So I will hold you to it.
Yeah.
And that, my friends, brings us to the end of an amazing conversation. And I can say that I have a lot of gratitude, not for all of this, not for the time, not for your hosting me in your beautiful house, but for the space in your hearts that you have created for me. Because in today's world, everything is basis whether a person has that mindset and that space in the heart to go across and do something for someone else. And this was a passion project. I spoke about this, at the very beginning of the thought process that I created on this. And you guys have been overtly kind, not once, but twice over. And
I think we owe it to you.
And I think I'm privileged to have you guys, not just as, I don't call you clients anymore. I'm privileged to have you guys as my friends. And I know that you guys are just going to keep shining. And the North Stars just going to keep getting brighter and bigger. So thank you very much for doing this. At the end, we have another very original concept where you have coffee mugs that you have to sign. Again, my content team is extremely inspirational. Please write your messages. This goes in our Lifeboat Hall of Fame. And someday, I will leverage these autographs, auction them, and maybe make them my retirement funds, given the way you guys are, rising and shining.
Thank
Godspeed.
you, Vinayak.
But please
Thank you, Vinayak.
write something, and this will go into the hallway. He actually started by signing.
I started with the message.
Thank God, that's the normal way to do it. I have to read this.
Yeah, I didn't know.
To
it was going
becoming a lifeboat for many, many more founders. Yeah, dude. That's my mission.
Oh, nice.
That's from Akash. And
Mine is sort of difficult to read.
Suleimani Kira should keep burning forever. True that. True that. And that's from Rishubh. With that, we sign off on this episode of The Lifeboat. See you in the next one. Thank you very much, guys. Couldn't have done this without you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Vinayak.
Appreciate it.
I think. Wait, can we cut?
Yeah, cut. It's okay. It'll roll.
Yeah.
Not bad.
Yes, this is good.
है ना? A lot of fun.
Very real.
Very real.
Very
yeah.
real. I think a lot of laughter. More important. Hi, this is VinayakBurman. आई होप आपको उतना ही मज़ा आया इस एपिसोड को देखने के लिए जितना मुझे आया इसको बनाने में. And if you think this adds value to your life, if you think this will teach you something, if you think this will help you to learn and create something in your lives, then go across and like, subscribe, share and comment. It will mean the whole world to me and my friends. If you don't have time to watch the entire podcast, then do subscribe to VinayakBurman Clips and VinayakBurman Shots, where we take out the most relevant extracts, the most important extracts of those podcasts, of those stories, of those moments for you and for your benefit, so that you can try and understand the gist of the whole conversation and yet take a lot of learning home. Till we see you next time, signing off, VinayakBurman.